Eric Purdue's new translation of Agrippa's 3 books of occult philosophy just arrived in the post a couple of days ago, and I've been very excited to give you a closer look at this very nice new edition. I'm, on the whole, very impressed. I've got a couple of reservations, possibly, that I'll talk about in a moment, specifically about the box itself, which arrived a little damaged, and unfortunately I'm not the only person who has reported this, speaking to a few people on the Foolish Fish members Discord chat server, and yeah, these kinds of scuffings seem to be a common thing. This is, yeah, the state in which this arrived. I ordered straight from the publishers, actually, directly from Inner Traditions. And also a couple of issues with the order kind of made me think twice about ordering directly from Inner Traditions in the future. But on the whole, I would say that it's a very, very nice edition, despite those couple of little flaws. I'll just end up my final little tour of gripes before starting with the praise. And my final gripe, of course, is the scuffing on the books themselves, which, coming wrapped in cellophane, I'm not sure that they should be in this kind of state. That's a factory issue, and possibly one over which Inner Traditions had little power. Who can say? What I will say is that once you remove the dust cover, which is very nicely designed, by the way, it's a shame that it's in such a bad state. It is actually a very beautiful design. Each of the volumes comes with its own recognizable illustration from within. And here's the third volume. Let me just pop this down there, over there. There we go. So yeah, each comes with its own kind of identity. Yeah, the natural world, celestial world, volume 2, and the divine world being book 3. And let me show you where the good stuff is. It's underneath here. This is real buckram, and it's a really nice mustard color. I'm very, very pleased with this. This looks gorgeous. And let me just show you the spine. It's even nicer. There we are. Isn't that good? Very, very beautiful. Yeah, lovely attention to detail. It's Smith sewn, this isn't going to come apart anytime soon. It just opens naturally and stays open on the selected page. Lovely thick paper stock. You know that I like to show you the construction of these books in my videos, and I'll talk a little bit about the content in a moment. Right, the color of the page is lovely. The choices of where to, well, just look how airy this is, how nicely laid out it is, and how easy it is on the eye. You've got these very nice fonts. Everything looks very beautiful, and the footnotes are at the bottom of the page rather than at the end of the chapter, or even worse, at the end of the book in some cases. But no, here all of the footnotes are right where you want them, so that's absolutely wonderful. Now, talking about the footnotes, let's talk a little bit about the content. The translation itself is great. I mean, Eric Purdue's translation is based on accuracy, right? That's the whole point of this whole endeavor. Why would we have a third edition on the market right now, right? Next to Donald Tyson's edition with Llewellyn, and next to Paul Summers Young's edition with Black Letter Press. Why do we need yet another translation? Well, Eric Purdue has spent the past, a long time. I don't want to say the wrong number of years, but my understanding is that it's around 10 years translating this directly from the Latin to make sure that we have the most accurate translation possible. And this is starkly contrasted with J.F.'s translation, which we have from the Renaissance. I'm not exactly sure, is it 15th century or 16th century, this translation? But I can't remember. I think I mentioned it in my review of this particular edition. Yeah, one way or another, it certainly doesn't read quite as smoothly for a modern audience. You know, it's very beautiful language. It's very lovely, very very pretty. And if you're used to reading Middle English, then this will be no problem at all for you. When we compare it to the modern English of this particular translation, this is certainly a more relaxed read. Let's go with that. Now, is it as relaxed to read as Paul Summers-Young's translation? Well, I'll show you a comparison between 3 identical paragraphs in a moment. But for now, I'll just say that the main thing that makes this stand out for me is the accuracy of translation. If you want, in my opinion, if you're looking for footnotes, then this is definitely the edition to have, the Donald Tyson edition. Let me just give you an idea, right? So this is what a footnote looks like in the Tyson edition, and that's when he hasn't included a whole bit of quoted bit of text within his footnote. Whereas here the translations really are about just giving a very brief explanation of a strange word that might be encountered. It might be about talking about how this translation differs from the JF translation. It might give some detail about a particular idea and maybe even a little bit of context. Occasionally it also gives a source, right, where Agrippa has used a quotation from somewhere else. So that's the kind of footnotes that you get here. Now, let me just go over to chapter 54. Here we are. And it just in all 3 of the editions, 54 and over here also to chapter 54. And let me just show you what I mean. So Paul Summers-Young has really focused his translation on efficiency, on giving the best idea of what the Latin text is trying to say in as succinct a way as possible, in as clear a way as possible, right? So he hasn't gone for a word-for-word translation. He hasn't gone for the most accurate translation that he could find. He just went with the most easily accessible translation. So yeah, taking the idea and putting it in as simple a way as possible, which makes this a really breezy read, right? Sometimes can feel a little how to say, maybe without much personality, right? He does drain some of the personality out of this, and I'll show you what I mean in a second. So let's start over here with the JF translation. All the auspicia which first happen in the beginning of any enterprise are to be taken notice of. Let's see what we have over here in the new Eric Purdue's translation. Auspices must first be taken at the beginning of each operation. Okay, and then finally in the Paul Summers-Young edition, auspicia are taken at the beginning of an enterprise. Okay, so as you can see, short to the point. And then back over here for the next part. As if in the beginning of thy work thou shalt perceive that rats have gnawn thy garments, desist from thy undertakings. If going forth thou shalt stumble at the threshold, on the way thou shalt dash thy foot against anything, forbear thy journey. If any ill omen happen in the beginning of thy business, put off thy undertakings, lest thy intentions be wholly frustrated or accomplished to no purpose. But expect and wait for a fortunate hour for the dispatching of thy affairs with a better omen. Over here we have, for example, if at the beginning of a labour you see that a mouse has chewed your garment, abandon the work. If going out you stumble on the threshold, or on the way strike your foot, hold your journey. If you run into any bad omens at the beginning of your work, delay that beginning, lest the entire purpose be frustrated, or your accomplishments will be useless. Wait for a fortunate hour to take action with a better omen. So we still retain a little bit of that flowery language to a degree, right? But it's obviously much more accessible to the modern reader. And then when we read Paul Summers Young's version, if on commencing some work you find rats have gnawed your clothing, stop. If you stumble on your threshold or catch your foot against something on your way, turn back. If any ill omen is received, postpone your work until a more fortunate time, or your effort will be wasted. So this reads a little bit more like a recipe book, maybe, I don't know, something like that. But you can see also that we've said, or rather Paul Summers Young has said in much fewer words the same thing, right? So that's the whole point here. There are no real, well, there certainly isn't a wealth of footnotes here. I can't remember if there are any at all, but I believe that there may be one or two here or there, or I'd be happy to be shown or to be reminded that there are. I haven't picked up this edition for a little while, but yes, the main thing that differentiates this edition is that there are introductions to every volume, right? There is a talk, it's just a few pages, but nevertheless, it is a word about the contents of the volume itself, and the translator's thoughts on what he experienced as he was translating it, and what he thinks might be of interest to the reader. So that's in volume 1, and then again in volume 2 we get such an introduction once again, but specific to volume 2, and so on and so forth. In the Eric Purdue's edition, there is a nice introduction on the translation process and the translation context. Yes, so textual history of the 3 books of occult philosophy, notes on the translation, and so on and so forth. Summary of the 3 books of occult philosophy, what you might find inside, and so on. There is also a very nice foreword by Christopher Warnock. Yes, there we are, which is very nice. And there's an introduction by the publishing house, right? By the publisher's preface. There we are. But nothing really at the beginning of the other 2 volumes, right? It just starts straight in with table of contents, and then you just get started with the contents of the book itself. What I do really like about this edition is the index. Let me show you the index. You know I'm a sucker for a good index. Here we are. So at the end of book 3, we have the index for the totality, right? So you're not looking through each book, you're not guessing in which book you're going to find the right index. You have a word, you have a concept, you just go to book 3, go to the complete index for the entire work, and yeah, and then look up the page. And each book is well, the page numbering for each book just follows on from the previous book. Right, so book 1 starts on page 1, book 2 starts on whatever page it starts on, and then book 3 starts on page 468. There we are, 467. There we are. So then you look up your concept in the index, look up what page it's on, and yeah, based on the number of the page, it's going to be in book 1, 2, or 3 on that particular page. So yeah, let's have a quick look on book 2. Book 2 starts on page 251. There we go. Right. What else can I tell you about? Oh, there's a very nice, here we are, the bibliography. The bibliography is very extensive. I think anyone who had access to the complete list of books here would be a very lucky person. There's some terrific reading recommendations here. Really, really good stuff. Yeah, I think we're coming to the end of my little tour here. I will be keeping all 3 editions. They each present something that the other 2 don't, and I'm just really, really happy to have this fresh new translation that yeah, as I say, keeps a little bit of the personality of the original, while being a lot more accessible, a lot more readily readable, right? You don't need to be in the mood quite so much as with the old JF edition, yeah, it's great to have a translation that has been put together by somebody who is a practitioner themselves, and who has a good idea of what Agrippa was talking about when he was talking about whatever history he was talking about, and who is able to put into words the original idea that was probably intended by Agrippa, whether Agrippa had made a mistake or not, right? He can actually get to the idea that Agrippa probably wanted to put across. Of course, whenever that happens, there's a little footnote to say this is the word that Agrippa used, although he was probably confused. He probably meant this or that or the other. But then that gives you the opportunity to make up your own mind, right? Yep, very, very nice edition, very, very impressive, and yeah, I strongly recommend it. If I could only recommend one edition, I would not know what to say. I think that would really be down to you, down to what you considered most important. Those footnotes in the Llewellyn edition are really so extensive. You could say that they're a work in themselves. Look at the notes on chapter 1 from book 2 here. It's just like pages and pages of it. Yeah. So there's that, right? And then this is so portable and so easy to read. So you know, so drop-inable, if I can say that. So easy to just pick up and get a couple of ideas and so on and so forth. And then yeah, this is a terrific scholarly edition, which we're very, very lucky to have. I was curious to see that Eric Purdue and the publisher do not mention the Eric Summers Young translation at all in the introduction over here in the Natural World. That was kind of well, interesting. I don't know when that introduction was written. Maybe it was written a while ago, before the Black Letter Press editions were actually out. But yeah, there doesn't seem to be any kind of acknowledgement of this edition at all, whereas this one is extensively referred to. Just as a note. And yep, that's about it from me. Thank you very much for watching the video. I hope you found some useful information there. Don't forget to leave a thumbs up and to subscribe down below if you haven't done so already. And I'll see you very soon with another video. Take care of yourselves. See you. Bye-bye.